Hello, this is Opinion News and I am your host, Lee Barron. So we're going to open up today by talking about Solo, a Star Wars story of box office failure. Now, by many metrics, I don't think that Solo is really a failure. By most standards, most films that would open up with $100 million in its opening weekend, they would consider that a success. But because of Solo's massively inflated budget and the fact that it's actually done poorly by comparison to other Star Wars films means that people are judging it to be a failure. Now, I'm less interested in whether it's succeeded or failed. I'm more interested in what people are attributing that failure to. The excuse that I can consistently see being trolled out is the idea of Star Wars fatigue. I don't know who's saying that it's getting Star Wars fatigue, but this seems really stupid to me because the people that spend $3,000 on a fucking Stormtrooper suit, the same people that dress up like Darth Maul and go and watch the movie go and watch Phantom Menace 19 times, these people don't get fatigue from Star Wars. Star Wars is like their crack. They could keep having it for the rest of their fucking life. If anything, when you're talking about fatigue from a film, fatigue only happens when the film is uninteresting or when it's tiresome. So if there is Star Wars fatigue, it's caused by the fact that the films are no longer interesting to Star Wars fans and not down to the fact that we're getting too much Star Wars. Yeah, it's a lot of Star Wars movies for people that aren't hardcore Star Wars fans like myself. I'm just a casual Star Wars fan. But to actual hardcore Lucas-era Star Wars fans, they can't get enough of fucking Star Wars. These are people that read multiple novels, play multiple video games, that spend $500 on a fucking figurine. They don't get Star Wars fatigue. The real reason for the supposed failure of Solo, I think, is down to the fact that Disney made a massive miscalculation. They made a big error. They skewed their core demographic in favor of chasing a new demographic for The Last Jedi and Force Awakens. And it's something that pissed off a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans. Now, I know that not all Star Wars fans feel that way. I've spoken to a few Star Wars fans on Twitter who were perfectly happy with the Disney-era Star Wars films. But the people who were there for the Lucas films, the people that did watch Phantom Menace multiple times and made George Lucas a billionaire, those are the people that aren't watching the films anymore. After The Last Jedi, when they saw their heroes be brought down to nothing and be humiliated in a variety of different ways, they simply weren't happy with the product that they received. And in the movie industry, it's all about delivering a product that your core audience wants to watch, and that audience clearly didn't want to watch it. And they said, we're not watching any more Star Wars films because we don't like the direction that Disney are taking it. And I think Disney, like the rest of us, even I myself made this mistake. I got complacent too, just like Disney, and thought, well, they'll still watch it anyway. Star Wars fans are fucking crazy. They will watch anything. But as it turns out, they didn't want to, and they didn't bother watching Solo. So that's all credit to them for voting with their wallet, which is another thing I'm going to come on to in a minute. I think it's so stupid to not admit the failings of the people behind the movies and instead to just blame it on an external factor. In psychology, we call this external locus of control, and it basically means that a person will blame their surroundings for their failures instead of accepting some of that responsibility themselves. And it prevents change and growth, because if it's in the hands of the people around you, well, then you can't do anything to change it. I think what Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and some of the fan base need to accept and realize is that they made an error of judgment with the direction they took the new Star Wars films. And the core fan base, the people that made George Lucas a billionaire, they're simply not interested in this new Star Wars direction. So they either need to be happy with making far less money than Lucas ever made, or they need to change the way that they make the films and please that demographic again. And I know many people have said, well, we don't want to make films for that demographic anymore. We don't want to make films for 40-year-old white man babies anymore. That's fine. That's your choice to do so. But you do have to accept that if you don't make films for those people, because don't forget, those are the people that are spending ridiculous amounts of money on your merchandise and on your movies, then you're not going to make as much money, because your newer fans and the children and families that are going to see Star Wars, they aren't watching Star Wars multiple times. They aren't spending $2,500 on Lego sets for their collections. That's the 40-year-old man babies are the people that are doing that. And I think you have to acknowledge the fact that those are the people that demographic are the people that put Star Wars where it is. So to say that you shouldn't be making films for your core demographic is a massive error in business, if you ask me. on a similar topic, it occurred to me the other day that there has been a big push for the Star Wars films to have a greater range of diversity, which I think is a good thing. I think we do need diversity in film, and I think it's a very good thing that we're pushing for that. But Kathleen Kennedy has yet to hire a woman to direct a Star Wars film or write a Star Wars film, and she's yet to hire a person of color to do that either. Perhaps it's just me, but it's a bit disingenuous to say that you're pushing all these changes into Star Wars to increase diversity while at the same time not offering positions of control to the people who you're supposedly changing the demographics toward. Just food for thought. Kind of in relation to that, I wanted to talk about the idea of vote with your wallet. This is a cliched phrase that gets doled out all the time, but I think it's completely appropriate to this particular topic of discussion. To their credit, Star Wars fans voted with their wallet. They didn't like the direction of The Last Jedi, and they said, we're not watching these Star Wars films. We're not giving you our money because you're not giving us the product that we want. And they did that. And a similar thing happened with Black Panther. You know, black audiences and black moviegoers said, you know what, we want to see more films with black casts, black directors, black writers. And they turned Black Panther into a $1 billion franchise. Now, the way that you tell Hollywood that you want change is you control them with finances. You vote with your wallet, because you can create all the hashtags you want, you can create all the Facebook groups you want. They don't give a fuck about those things. You can do it all day, they don't care. What they do care about is money. That's what corporations are interested in. They're interested in nothing but their bottom line. Hurt their bottom line or help their bottom line, and that tells them what you want to see. Which brings me on to the topic of women in film. Recently, there's been a lot of outspoken women that say that we need more women in prominent roles, both in front of and behind the camera. And I agree, I think that it's a good thing that we do get that. However, you women out there, you're not doing your part to help this cause, because you're asking for films that are made by women and designed for women and feature women, but you're not supporting them. Ghostbusters came out, women didn't go see it. You didn't support the film. And even more criminally, A Wrinkle in Time came out, which is a film based on a book written by a woman, directed by a woman of color, featuring an almost all-female cast, designed for women, and you didn't support it. Had you turned that into a $1 billion franchise, you would have told Hollywood that you wanted to see more films created for and by women. But you didn't do that. So of course they're not going to pay attention to your campaigns, because you're not telling them the information that they need to know. As far as they're aware, they can create films for you, but you don't support them, so why should they keep creating more? It's all good and well to campaign and say you want more films for this demographic, but then not support it when it comes out is very duplicitous, in my opinion. You need to do exactly what the black communities and minority communities did when Black Panther came out, and turn whatever film comes out into a $1 billion movie. Because Black Panther isn't perfect. It's a very good film, it's very enjoyable, and I really enjoyed the writing more than anything. It was very well written, but there were big flaws in the film. There were loopholes in the story, the CGI was ropey, and the action sequences weren't shot and edited particularly well, in my opinion. But black people went out there and turned it into a $1 billion movie, so there will definitely be more movies just like that, with black casts and black people in charge. Had you done the same with A Wrinkle in Time, you might be seeing more films created by and designed for women, but you probably won't now, because you didn't tell Hollywood that that was what you wanted. You just made up a campaign on Twitter and Facebook, which does nothing. Social media does fuck all. It doesn't affect their bottom line, so they don't care, so don't do it. Actually get off your ass, go and support the movie in the cinema. That's how you tell them what you want to see. We don't have, 10 years worth of Marvel movies because we did Twitter campaigns for it. You have them because they were supported in the cinema. They made money. And when you make $1 billion for a movie studio, they'll give you whatever the fuck you want, as long as you make them that money. They don't care. They don't have morals or ethics. They just care about that money. Give them that money, they'll give you what you want. Simple as. That brings me on to Ocean's 8. There's been some negative reviews of Ocean's 8. I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you if it's good or not. But there were some negative reviews, and some people have attributed that to the fact that there are not as many male critics out there. Well, that's really down to women again. It's up to you women to become a film critic. Nobody pays me to do this, to analyze and review movies. I just decided to do it, and anybody with a shit camera and a YouTube channel can do the exact same thing. Anybody with a blog can do the same thing. Anybody with a fucking Twitter page can do the same thing. You can be a critic. So if there's not enough female critics out there, it's because not enough women want to be critics. So it's not really fair to blame men for the failure of Ocean's 8, although I don't know how well it's done, but it's just something I read that was on, I think it was on the Guardian's website. There was criticism that if there were more male critics, it would have been received better. I don't think it would. Because male critics slate male films, we don't support them just because they're for men. If you're a film critic, we kind of take pride in the fact that our opinions feel like they're important, or at least to us. So we take pride in trying to get our opinions as honest and truthful as possible, at least those of us that aren't in bed with the industry. There are a lot of critics out there who get perks from movie studios. They get to interview the stars, attend preview screenings and premieres, and obviously those perks will be taken away if they criticize a film too badly, which could explain some disparity between audience and critic scores of some recent movies. But people like myself, I don't get paid, and so I do this for free. So you can trust that my opinion is mine because nobody's influencing it apart from me. Next news item. Top Gun. This is a fucking bad idea in my opinion. I don't know how well this is going to be received or made. This film is a definite product of the 80s, and I'd be very surprised if it's a success. I wish Tom Cruise the best of luck making it because I do like the majority of his film catalogue, and I think he's a far more diverse actor than people give him credit for. But I do think that this is a bad idea. I can't see it working, but we'll see when it gets closer to the time. Maybe when I've seen it, I'll change my opinion, but it's a very, very dated franchise that was never historically accurate to begin with, and so I don't imagine it's going to be very successful with an audience of today. But who knows, maybe I'll be wrong. John Cena and Jackie Chan are making an action thriller together. At first when I read this, I thought it sounded like a stupid idea, but then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, I bet these can work as a very good comedy duo. They can both handle action very well, and they can both handle comedy very well. I saw John Cena in Trainwreck, which is the Amy Schumer movie, and I thought he was amazing in it. He was the funniest thing about the film. I thought he was great. And so to see him team up with Jackie Chan, I think could be potentially a very good idea. So I'll look forward to seeing how that film progresses. Next on our topics list, what do we got? James Wan and Arachnophobia. This is a great pairing for me. I think that James Wan is the perfect director to, I don't know if they're going to remake it or reboot it or if it'll be a sequel to Arachnophobia. Hopefully it won't be a sequel because I really can't see how a sequel is going to work from a writing standpoint. But a reboot or a remake could work really well with James Wan. I think he's a very astute director. I really like he's got a great eye for shot composition and for editing. I think he's going to have a big career ahead of him, not just in the field of horror, but in general. I think when he's given the chance to broaden his range a bit, I think people are going to be very surprised by how well he does, and I think he's perfect for the Arachnophobia job. And finally, we come on to the topic of Halloween 2018. I didn't realize that rhymed until I said it out loud. I was quite excited when I first read how the writers wanted to approach this, saying that they wanted to kind of ignore the history of the Halloween franchise and start over from Halloween 1 onwards and just disregard everything from Halloween 2 forward, and that they were going to approach it less like Michael Myers is a revenge killer and more that he's just someone who is mentally ill. I thought that was a scarier idea. I thought it was a great idea until I saw the trailer, and I'm a bit less excited about it now. I think everything that I saw in the trailer we already saw in Halloween H2O, which was not a good movie. If we're totally honest, it was kind of the opposite of a not a good movie. It was a pretty fucking awful movie. It could work, but a lot of it seemed like it's stuff that I've seen before in many other slasher films, and I'm just not sure how this film is going to work in a modern audience. Especially when you take away the idea that they've said they don't want Michael Myers to be a supernatural force anymore, and they want to make him a real person. Well, that would make Michael Myers a mid-60s guy running around murdering teenagers and children and seemingly being invincible, and I don't think that's going to work. I just don't think it is going to work. So I'll look forward to seeing how that progresses, and maybe I'll probably go see it because I love the original from John Carpenter. I did a review on it, which I felt was a very in-depth review. It was one of my early ones. Check it out if you're interested. I talk a lot about how John Carpenter uses different types of shots to evoke different feelings with the audience. And I'm a big fan of John Carpenter's original, so I'll probably go see this, but I'm less excited about it than I was when I first heard the concept for it. So that's it for this edition of Opinion News. If you have any thoughts on what I've spoken about today, then hit me up in the comment section. Let me know what you think. The first section of the show is probably going to be kind of divisive or divisive. I don't know how you say it, divisive. So if you've got an opinion on that, let me know what you think. I'm genuinely interested how other people have interpreted the information that I've discussed today. As always, I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody that supports this channel and is a subscriber. I also do have another announcement. I'm going to be starting a podcast very soon. If you follow me on Twitter, I will announce on Twitter when the podcast is going to go up. You can catch me on 8BT Heroes, or you can follow the Facebook page, and I'll also put an announcement on Facebook too, and that's That Movie Show on Facebook. The podcast is just going to talk about anything that's not related to films, really. So if you're interested in hearing me talk about things like psychology, economics, sociology, all kinds of different stuff related to general life. The first episode is the first in a multiple part series that I'm going to be calling How to Be a Better Human. So if you're interested in hearing what I've got to say about that, then join me on the podcast once you see it go live. Thanks a lot for your time today, guys. I hope to see you guys again soon. Thanks a lot for all your time and dedication today, guys. I really appreciate how often you all tune in to listen to me ramble about stuff. I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.